Alright, hello everyone. I wasn't going to stream tonight. The wind is bad, and I was feeling wretched, but I was watching Demon Mama's coverage of the Kidology thing, and it's... Dear God, it's worse than I thought. So... Let's see... So, what we're doing tonight is sort of a preliminary to tomorrow, because there are some massive gaps in my understanding of what the hell this person is, where the hell this person is coming from. So we're going to try and figure that out tonight. What is... Okay. Psycho's streaming right now. Oh, so she is. Do not want to see probably people stream. Okay. I'll probably go over that with her later. Sorry, I muted the desktop audio so you didn't hear Twitch blasting. I hate it because as soon as you open it, it just starts. Yeah. So, anyways, there's a few things we're gonna look at. There's a conversation with Not So Erudite. There is a Q&A. And there are some earlier videos on, there's an analysis of Squid Game. There's some older political commentary videos. We're just gonna dig through and just trying to figure out what it is we're working with here. In preparation for tomorrow. This stream will not be available on this channel. This will be available on the second channel, which you can find in a link at the bottom of this channel's front page, as well as the rest of our, the rest of the unedited stream VODs going forward. The one that will be on this stream, on this channel, will be tomorrow. DM is streaming. I know DM's streaming. I'm only streaming because DM's streaming. I got just deeply offended watching her coverage. Her coverage is fantastic. Demon Mama's is. The thing she's covering is... Dear God. Where's Squid gone? Where's the Squid gone? Oh. It's right here. It's just off camera. You had me nervous for a second. You can go up there today. Knock over all my chess pieces. Alright, well. Let's get the show on the road, shall we? Close. So there's a part 1 of a personal Q&A. I think this will be a good place to start. So we'll go here. Let's turn that music off. And I guess we'll just begin with this. There's no plan here. This is all off the cuff. So we will just have to see. There is no earthly way of knowing which direction we are going. The danger must be growing.
And the filters.
No, don't talk about the filters yet. We'll get to the filters. How's the new cut working out? My head's very cold. My ears are weirdly hot. It's strange.
What do you think about cancelling cancel culture? Let's just say I don't think the YouTube community, for instance, or an online audience is the best arbiter of justice.
Let's see. This is from a year ago. Okay.
I think there are the right people, people with specialist qualifications and training and genuine experience who are legitimately able to uphold the definition of justice. I think the problem is that a lot of the culture which is being
Hang on. That sentence didn't complete. What did she say?
legitimately able to.
Okay. Well, hang on. Okay. What do you think of cancel culture? I don't think the YouTube community is the appropriate body to administer justice or to determine justice.
I think there are the right people, people with specialist qualifications and community, for instance, or an online audience is the best arbiter of justice.
I don't think so.
I think there are the right people.
I think that other right people, this is thumbnail material. I'm deeply, deeply sorry, Kidology. But this is just how it be. The gods demand blood. Most unfortunate.
People with specialist qualifications and training and genuine experience who are legitimately able to uphold the definition of justice. I think the problem is.
So she thinks there's an elite qualification you can have to uphold the definition of justice. Okay. Alright, so what I'm reading here is positioned with a fairly good pedigree in terms of its associations. So we do not refer decisions to a generality. We refer decisions about what is appropriate to those who have been properly educated in justice. So this sounds like a very pretentious undergraduate who has read Plato's Republic in a third-year seminar course and thinks that he's talking to them, or something along those lines. I'm familiar with this way of talking because everybody goes through a phase.
Is that a lot of the culture which is being cancelled is culture insofar as it is encompassed by money. It's all about money. It's all about a career and.
What the hell did she just say?
Culture insofar legitimately able to uphold the definition of justice. I think the problem is that a lot of the culture which is being cancelled is culture insofar as it is encompassed by money. It's all about money. It's all about a career and deals and sponsorships and branding and selling things to viewers, etc. And so I think that cancelling infers sort of a moral reckoning with something. And I think it's very difficult for morality and money to play on the same field, as it were. So
Okay, I didn't understand a word of that, but we'll press on.
personally, I am not a fan of cancel culture. I think a lot of the obsession around cancel culture is very concentrated in more affluent and wealthy societies, and also in this age in which we are increasingly not wanting to address or deal with the real serious issues of the world beyond our modern world and context, obsessively engaging and being obsessively involved in the tea and the drama and the worlds of influences and the rich and famous online, and adding sort of our moral compass, as it were, to their lives and what they're doing and their behavior. It's an easy, digestible distraction from what's really going on in the world, and I'm not.
Am I having a stroke, or is anybody else able to follow? What the hell is she saying? None of this makes any. There's no coherent thoughts here. It's just blah 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 blah. Like it's this. There's no. I have no idea what she's talking about.
Not necessarily saying that audiences are to blame for this at all. I just think that the world is a very, very dark place, and we are increasingly becoming aware of that because of technology, because of the internet. So yes, I think that we should cancel culture. I don't think we really need to. I think it just
What?
cancels itself because it
You need to cancel culture. I don't think we need to. I think it just cancels itself.
just sort of goes in a bit of a loop. But
Oh, something's going in a loop.
yes, I'm definitely not
Yes,
at the
yes.
front of the mob or the crowd or whatever, trying to get somebody deplatformed or taken off the internet. Yes, no. Not a question, and it's a bit hard to word it properly, but your face reminds me of Grimes for some reason. Maybe it's because of the bone structure, the anatomy, I do not know, especially from the nose.
Okay, we don't care about that.
Asks, do you follow any philosophical views, and if so, which ones? I wouldn't necessarily
Okay, hang on. Let's get the actual question, because that was more sophisticated than that.
asks, do you
I originally wrote these 2 questions 2 days ago, right after the tab was posted, but I had to do something and then ended up forgetting about it, but I'm back, so here's my question. During your quote, I don't dream of labor, unquote, video, you mentioned the difference between neoliberalism and capitalism. Would you consider yourself a true capitalist or something on the other side? 2, do you follow any philosophical views? If so, which one? I see, okay. So it's two questions. She's answering the latter. All right.
Do you follow any philosophical views, and if so, which ones? I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a philosophical view, but more so a method or an approach to existence in general. I am very interested in hermeneutics. I'm not sure what you'd call somebody who advocates for hermeneutics and is very fascinated by
That would be a hermeneutics advocate. If you're talking about someone who's engaging in hermeneutics, that would be an hermeneuticist. Hermeneutics is just a methodology of interpretation of a text, or of a thing, generally, I think. I think it's generally text, no? Hang on, let me... Yeah, it can be more than text, but it's frequently used. I don't know. It comes up in when you're talking about like Purse, Séjour, Gadamer, uh, Levi-Strauss.
it. A hermeneuticist. I read, for instance, a lot of Hans-Georges Gadamer. I read Augustine because I find sort of the tradition of Christian hermeneutics influencing now our hermeneutics in just general philosophical senses to be very, very interesting. Although Gadamer is incredibly flawed, I am a proponent of Gadamer, and I would say that I am very much invested in what he has written and had to say, especially in Truth and Method. Ash talks a lot.
But you didn't say anything. Hermeneutics isn't... Hermeneutics is like an approach. It's not... Augustine and Gadamer. Why Gadamer? I'm smelling some... I'm smelling some Peterson influence here. I think that's the common thread. But what's frustrating though is, like, do you follow any philosophical views? Hermeneutics. It's not philosophical view. I don't think that's a really appropriate way to characterize that, but okay. I'm interested in hermeneutics, let's say that. We've switched the question to what are your philosophical interests? She's interested in hermeneutics. I like Gadamer. I think Gadamer is really interesting. She didn't say anything about Gadamer or why he's interesting. It's just he's a Christian. Why Augustine? He's a Christian. She's interested in Christian hermeneutics in particular. Well, Christian hermeneutics are not exactly the same as hermeneutic simplicity. That's something else. Not all hermeneutics is religious, like Heidegger did hermeneutics too. Yeah, and Gadamer took after Heidegger. I have not read Gadamer, but I know that much. Um, I'm smelling that she's very possibly biased. Maybe. I dare not speculate. What is this? Should creators explicitly state... Doesn't say. What is this?
Do you think YouTube creators should explicitly state...
Boundaries with audience, I don't care about that. What did you study? Okay, this is interesting.
Angela asks, what did you study at university and how was your experience? Right. So this is something that I have not wanted to talk about, which is one of the reasons why I don't like to be very personal. But you know what, we need to just get this over and done with. This is what this video is mainly about. This is mainly so that I can just answer these questions, get it over and done with, and move on to other things that don't involve me at all personally. So, basically, societally speaking, I am a failure. I have failed. And you know what? That's fine. I really don't care as long as I can find a semblance of happiness in something. And at the moment, I don't have that. And so that's why I don't feel fine about it. Long story short, I studied a degree called Human, Social and Political Sciences. And I specialized in political science and...
Oh, we've hit the jackpot. Human, social, and political sciences. That's a weird... Human, social, and political sciences. That's phrasing I would expect. I guess she's from the UK, so it would make sense.
And economics, primarily the history of political thought and the history of economics and economic philosophy. I studied in the UK and I studied at Cambridge University. My experience was academically a very negative one. I don't blame the institution for this. I blame, I would say, firstly, my naivety, and I would say, secondly,
And the institution is partially charged with helping you to overcome your naivety, right? So I would blame the institution.
The unfortunate dynamics between myself and the academics who I worked with and my supervisors.
Interesting.
I think there were definitely institutional things, such as, for instance...
Supervisors, huh? Maybe I'm unfamiliar with how it works in the UK, but supervisors typically are things that you have when you're either in an advanced placement, like honors degree program, because contrary to the popular misconception, most honors programs are not things that you're awarded, they are things you effectively buy into. But moreover, it's typically grad students who have supervisors. So I don't, maybe I'm not familiar with how it works there, but see, for me, if I hear you have a supervisor, being in North America, I infer from this grad student, not undergraduate.
My interests, which are primarily in Western European political thought and economy, so basically everything to do with...
Hang on, let's rewind a little bit. What about Western political thought and economy?
The academics who I worked with and my supervisors. I think there were definitely institutional things, such as, for instance, my interests, which are primarily in Western European political thought and economy, so basically everything to do with dead, white, misogynistic men. I am absolutely fascinated in and want to study and want to read. My final year dissertation was about Thomas Hobbes and St. Augustine.
Okay. These books are true dark academia, nothing happy and very classical. Well, I have some bad news for you, friendo. Not only are neither of these really appropriately dark academia, it is because they are not very classical at all. City of God is written near the end of the Roman Empire. Leviathan is actually the birth of liberal thought. I've also never seen this edition. Oh, that's a Mac. That's not Leviathan. This isn't Leviathan. This is one of those This is one of those cheapy uh alternatives to like Cliff Notes. This is a cheapo analysis that you can get off Amazon for $10, and it sells itself like it's the actual book, so it tricks hapless buyers into getting the thing. You'll find them all over the place. If you Google if you try to buy The Dawn of Everything off Amazon, you'll see a bunch of titles come up called An Analysis of the Dawn of Everything. And it's like a 40-page essay, probably just printed off of one of those essay cheat sites, just published as a book. Isn't dark academia just when you go to uni and are gay? No, dark academia is a whole aesthetic about dressing more posh than you are, and kind of romanticizing a very unhealthy and rather pointless and performative idea of what academics entails. Genuine academics end up looking like, well, they look like all sorts of different people, but more often than not, they look like a slightly more well-dressed version of Slavoj Žižek. Why? Because this shit is exhausting. You spend a ton of your time doing exhausting admin work. You're doing an exhausting amount of really hard research. It hurts to do it, and you're not doing it because it's cool. You're often doing it because you're trying to do something useful. So you're not typically, unless you're in a very well-funded vanity department, and those exist, you're not typically spending all of your time learning Greek and reading the classics and whatever, and just trying to become an enlightened Renaissance man. Typically, you're reading papers, doing research, publishing, attending conferences, and you don't end up doing the whole pretentious dark academia shtick. You end up dressing professionally, or in the case of Zizek, not dressing professionally if you have enough prestige that you can just say fuck you to that kind of thing. And you're hustling almost like what I have to do on YouTube. Actually, it's kind of spooky how similar they are in some respects. It's except actual academics have a lot less freedom in terms of what they have to do, because they have actual like administrative responsibilities put on them. Grad students and PhDs, they work to death. In fact, interestingly enough, do I actually have my copy? No, it's in the other room. I have another book by her though. The author who apparently inaugurated sort of the dark academia fad, I think in like 1991, it might have been the year I was born, Donna Tartt. This isn't the book, but this is another book by her. She wrote a book called The Secret History. That whole book, which is very good by the way, doesn't romanticize the aesthetic. Well, I mean, it does to begin with, but then it breaks it down near the end, because it shows you that it's a fraud, and these people, by the end of it, because they've spent all of their time on this like self-aggrandizing nonsense that doesn't actually contribute to other people, it's just play acting being the more important main characters of humanity or something, they have nothing to offer, and they've basically been educated to do nothing. And that's not like to degrade like the study of the classics or whatever, or study of poetry or literature, or even great books programs or whatever, even though as like an end and not as like a prelude to like a more specified education, I think those are kind of silly in their own right. You get it. The point is, you should not, as an actual academic, be fetishizing that kind of thing, and that's kind of what I'm getting here. St. Augustine and Hobbes. Hang on, I'm trying to figure out what she would be doing with that.
So basically everything to do with dead white misogynistic men.
Right.
I am absolutely fascinated in and want to study and want to read. My final year dissertation was about Thomas Hobbes and St. Augustine. I have Thomas Hobbes, Baruch Spinoza, Dickens and Dostoevsky, or pictures of them hanging above my bed. I don't know what that means or what that does for me, but
That's
they're
fair.
there, seemingly watching over me. Yeah, and I think that definitely contributed to the way that I was treated by the academic staff. I did not fit into the stereotype of what a student of colour at this particular university was meant to be. Academics were very much used to and very much
Hang on. Critical theory, especially critical race theory, is huge in my alma mater. I don't think she knows what critical theory is. If you can't have an interest in hermeneutics in particular, sorry, hermeneutics in particular, and have this attitude to critical theory. That doesn't make sense.
expecting that anybody who was a person of colour wanted to change.
Anyone who loves Hobbes after they've come out of after they've come out the other side of their education in political science has failed radically. Hobbes is someone you need to understand specifically to escape. He is uh, he's paradigm shifting in terms of thought. He is not enlightening.
Change everything and wasn't at all interested in these things. And as a consequence, in all of my seminars and all of my one-on-one supervisions and group supervisions, what have you, I was, the one black person. And it's not necessarily because there weren't there were lots of black people and people of colour at Cambridge, but in terms of my interests, which were very, very much attended by your very stereotypical dark academia looking individual from a Donna Tartt novel,
There you go.
I definitely did not fit that. I wouldn't call my encounters with these academics racist, but I am quite sure that if I wasn't black, their response to me would have been very different. University was very interesting. I think I went into university with a very idealized notion that that the university was a place where meritocracy would be realized, where in fact all the hard work that I had put into studying and cultivating intelligence and all of that was suddenly going to pay off. And that idea was very appealing and it seemed viable to me because I had gone up to the college which I ended up in. I'd done the interviews, I'd done the exams, the assessments, everything. I'd done all of that, and so I'd earned my way there. And then I got approved for a student loan, and so I thought, yes, even though I don't have the money, even though I don't have the background, even though I don't have the cultural experience, even though I've never seen Europe, I've never gone to Rome or to Athens in order to actually really cultivate my love.
Can you elaborate on what you mean about Hobbes? Hobbes provides a logical justification of sovereignty deriving from the consent of the governed as a kind of antidote. I hate that language that makes you think it's like Jordan Peterson sort of self-help therapy kind of thing, but as I suppose a counter argument against those who would argue that the rights of the little people in some sense justify the chaos and danger of civil war. So he argues, and to put it very shortly, that the uncertainty and destruction that is endemic in a state of nature, which a state of civil war is a return to because you're outside of the hegemony of a single state keeping order, is so bad that it is worth remaining in a unjust society rather than falling into that again. And B, you actually have consented to the rule by even a ruler that you dislike by partaking in society's benefits. because you could have chosen death. A person who has been taken as a slave by a conquering power, they could have chosen death. They have clearly chosen slavery. Therefore, um, that's the long and short of it. But this emphasis on, or I guess rather, this locating of the right to rule as being downstream from the consent of the individuals who make up the body of the people. That is what sort of sets that is what gives us that's what sets the table for liberal thinking that comes afterwards. So like, a massive debt is owed to it. You wouldn't really have most leftist thought without it. Most left-wing thought is in some respects a response to liberal thought from Hobbes through to Rousseau and onward. But by the same token, it also acts as a logical justification for a set of circumstances, specifically a modern state system, which is not necessary and not natural, and it does so on the basis of some fairly spurious reasons. And so you need to understand Hobbes in order to understand the beginning point, the contingency of a lot of our assumptions in modern political discourse and modern political analysis, so that you can escape them. Because the end, the goal of politics is defined by the beginning. And if your beginning is at an artificial point, the goal, that's going to be equally artificial. I mean, it's all artificial. We're talking about politics, but the point is not necessary. And that's a problem, because if we are justifying some really pernicious things, those justifications need to hold. The thing we are justifying has to in fact be necessary. If it's not, if it's resting on some spurious assumptions by someone who is answering questions that we are no longer asking because we've moved on from them, then we don't want to be taking that as dogma. Does that make sense?
An adoration for these thinkers and for these civilizations, I'm still going to this university, to this incredible university. In my first year, I definitely lived in that illusion, but then things got real, and I think that is something that a lot of people experience. Unfortunately, since my second year, I've been on antidepressants. I have attempted on one occasion, and it's not all to do with university. I think it was just everything to do with my life, sort of, and realizing that I was alone. And also the thing is that I had no support, and I was living, because of my situation of being fostered, then adopted, then fostered again, I lived at my university. I stayed at university the whole time. It was very lonely as well, because at Cambridge we have very short terms. Our terms are 6 weeks, and then we have weeks and weeks of holiday. Our summer is so long, so long. I'm so sorry, Angela. This has just gone really down the scenic route, but
okay, I think we get the idea from this. Let's see here. She had a conversation with Not So Erudite where they mention books. We'll look at that in a second. I'm going to be right back, and we'll continue. So, yeah, so she talked to Not So Erudite, and they talked about books and influences and things like that. So we're gonna let's see what we can get from this. What we got here? Problems of university bureaucracy. What led Kidology to YouTube? Okay, well these are university's best and worst. Okay, we'll jump through this a little bit. So, I guess introductions.
So I guess let's start with the obvious and easy one, which is hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to speak with you.
I'm so excited to have you. I spent like all morning just listening to, because I've listened to like 3 of your video essays, and a lot of my viewers were like, "You're gonna love Kidology," and I was like, "Okay, listen to 3 of your video essays," and I was like, is this me? We barely differ on. I don't know if we differ on anything. It's crazy. And then so they sent me all your like manosphere stuff. I spent the whole morning listening to your stuff on university.
That's an interesting sentence. She doesn't disagree with her on basically anything. Intriguing. This is from 3 weeks ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
It's gone way back.
We've learned some stuff about erudite.
I just went to some of your highest rated videos. I think that's a really good way to see like what probably people will first see about you. Your piece on Mackenzie, what's her last name? Fierstein. That is a really interesting story. It's great. I almost applied for UPenn Clinical Psych this year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like a weird small world. Yeah, I decided not to just because of the fees, and I decided on clinical psych programs. I'm in Canada, so I decided to just stay local. But yeah, that was really interesting. I was like,
with the stuff you've pulled online, if you ever get into any kind of institutional position at university, that would be a disaster for you. Kyla, I highly recommend you just stick to streaming.
Like, maybe I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure. It seems like Ivy League American education is weird. So, for my viewers who aren't familiar with you, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Hello, I'm Kidology. Well, that's my channel name. My name is actually Zandile, but everyone calls me Z. I've been making YouTube videos for about 2 years now, I would say, and I now do this full time. Only recently started doing this full time, and I make video essays, and I also do some streaming now just to get out of my comfort zone.
Nice.
And yes, based in the UK, have a very quote unquote British perspective of things. But yes, I'm happy to be here, enjoy the internet, but I have only been on the internet for about 2.5 years in total. Only got my first phone like 2.5 years ago. So
oh wow.
Yes, I'm very late to the internet and everything's social media based. So I think sort of being a pre-internet, pre-smartphone, pre-YouTube person, and now sort of having this completely alternative perspective has really you can see the difference between the 2 worlds. It's really 2 different worlds altogether, and I think that often affects my opinion on things, but yeah, it's very interesting nonetheless.
Affect your opinion in what way?
I think my opinion on sort of I think on the internet, everything seems very hopeless and everything seems very generic. Sort of one size seems to fit all. Like there's seemingly no individuality outside of communities and little, as Brittany Simone says, sort of bubbles. I think it's very easy to become quite nihilistic online and to sort of see the world as just being this. It really changes your perspective when you go out, and I think it's very important for me to distinguish between the 2, and to sort of see that there is actually hope and individuals out there, but probably not online as much. So yeah.
Every 3rd sentence she says, I have no idea what she's saying. I have no idea what the hell she's talking about. Hegel is easier than interpreting this.
Right. Yeah, it's that's an interesting perspective. I think it's really good for the internet folks to get normie perspectives. And you're kind of like a maximal normie because you were not even a smartphone user until, like you said, 2.5 years
Yeah,
ago. So you're like
yeah, yeah.
an extreme. We don't know that these people exist almost. I say
Oh,
we,
exactly.
even though
Yes.
they make fun of me for being a normie, but I'm at least slightly more internet, I think, than you. Although I'm mostly a
Yeah.
normie as well. I didn't even like game until basically COVID hit. So,
All
um,
right. Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. Trying to get into that, but I'm not succeeding very well,
Yeah,
I'm afraid.
me neither. I picked one game and I've just committed wholesale. And it's a very embarrassing game, so I won't tell you about it, but
Okay.
I
Okay.
love it.
Okay.
Okay, so you got a smartphone 2.5 years ago. What got you into
Yeah.
streaming and like, sorry, not streaming, but video essaying first? Like, what? How did you
Yeah.
start that?
Yes. Well, I was working at a grocery store. I'd sort of just, I guess, in a way, was didn't really know what to do. This was sort of the first job that I got, and I was like, yes, okay, I'm sticking here. And it was a good job insofar as making friends, but I was lacking purpose and meaning. And I just started watching YouTube after I got a smartphone, and I thought, maybe I could do something like this. And I just became obsessed with YouTube, just watching YouTube all the time, all the different communities and people, all the drama, everything. It was just really intriguing. And it was sort of like escapism for me. That was my escape.
Right.
And I think I just decided to really get into it with the idea mainly of having, I think, goals, like goals of, okay, I'm going to save for a computer, I'm going to save for a camera, I'm going to save for lighting, rather than just sort of, I guess, having no purpose and just spending my money on food. So I think it was a good learning experience for me insofar as learning how to save for something that I wanted, having a goal in mind.
Hmm.
Um, and just also having a way, I think, to execute my degree, which I hadn't found.
Okay, problems with university bureaucracy. I have no idea what she's talking about.
Sounds like you're true
Mm,
academic in that like you are went to university for what originally, like way back when, what university used to be
yeah,
for, like what it used to symbolize.
yes, exactly.
Obviously, I think you and I are similarly like, I want to be careful because I'm still a bit of an institutionalist, but I have
Hmm.
major criticisms of particularly like universities and specific institutions.
Mm.
Um,
Namely, they're producing these two.
where do you say would you fall on that? Are you like a pretty staunch institutionalist, or this might be a bit of an internet word, so just let me know if I'm using any like weird lingo.
Oh, yes. As in by institutionalist, do you mean as in pro the institution
trust
of,
trust the institution. You believe that the systems were built mostly well. You might have criticisms of the institution.
The universities don't trust the institutions. Professors are fighting with administrators who want to turn the whole thing into a business. Constantly. Philosophy departments are being shrunk so that administrators can cut costs and put money into uh, salaries and more profitable departments because they're not being run by people who actually have the function of a university in mind when they're running it. Um, that's that's it. Uh, when we're talking about institutionalists in the context of YouTube speak, we're talking about people who really want there to be some kind of parity between some asshole grifter with a webcam telling you that ivermectin will cure COVID, and somebody with actual credentials who is producing reports on actual treatments. That's what's going on here.
Whereas like somebody who's an
yes,
anti-institutionalist would say it's all bad, we need to tear it down and kind of radically rebuild.
right. No, I'm with you on this. I do think that it is good. It has potential, and it had potential. I think now, not so much.
What?
yeah. Now I'm very critical of it.
You think the institution... Okay. Let's be nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's lost its way. It's lost its identity because there's sort of this bureaucracy and this business ethic that is now, I think, just marinating the entire experience.
Yeah.
And everything is about making money. And it's
Okay.
incredible the fees that international students who make up the majority of
That's
students
fair,
now
actually.
at my
That's fair.
university. I mean, the amount of money that they pay just to be there, and it's just extraordinary, not in a good way. But I think because of that, the academy has lost its identity and its way in pursuit of profit and influence. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Like I have a lot of criticisms of how this system has influenced the research itself. Just because like I'm working as like a researcher right now and stuff
God
like
help
that.
us all.
Like, research is very near and dear to my heart. But listening to your video essays, it was a very interesting critique of kind of
Which is why you never just run your mouth and say things that are factually incorrect without doing any research, right, Kyla?
bureaucratic side that I've heard like titillations of as I've worked in universities. But I was like the Mackenzie story is wild to me. Just a wild display of the problems with the zeitgeist and focus of universities, especially the business side of the universities. Could you, because I know a lot of my viewers probably haven't necessarily watched that, could you TLDR the Mackenzie Ferguson?
Fierstein.
Can you TLDR us on that story just so everyone knows what we're talking about?
Oh yes. So basically, I read the story about this.
I'm actually not familiar with this. Let's see here. So Mackenzie Fierstein, American activist and graduate student studying at Oxford. Fierstein began secretly documenting physical and psychological abuse by her mother, a radiologist, during her high school years. She had lived with her mother since her parents divorced acrimoniously during her childhood, and a guardian ad litem, was appointed to represent Fierstein's interests in the proceeding, during which allegations were made. Her mother arrested with child abuse, okay. Fierstein's mother's supporters have maintained that her daughter was an emotionally manipulative girl who injured herself and fabricated other aspects of the abuse in order to become a more appealing candidate for admission to an Ivy League college such as Penn. Fierstein finished her Whitfield education on a scholarship while living in foster homes. She was then admitted to Penn on a full scholarship, where she identified as a first-generation, low-income FGLI student despite her background due to her estrangement from her parents and lack of financial support from them. Classification, she says, Penn officials told her was acceptable in those circumstances. After Fierstein was so first-generation means your parents did not go to university, so you're a first-generation student or presumably first-generation graduate, which is a big deal. If you as somebody who does not have parents who are university graduates, but who did go to university, not having that knowledge base sort of handed to you, not having any guidance, is a massive disadvantage when you're going in. Massive. You don't know how to you go in not knowing how to comport yourself with staff, and I don't mean in the sense of like just being basically respectful and getting along with them. You don't know how to if you grow up with like political opinions, say, that are contentious, you are not taught when it is appropriate to keep them to yourself, when it is appropriate to discuss openly in a classroom, because it's very Byzantine in a lot of ways, especially when you want to move into grad programs. You're not taught what to do in terms of networking, getting the appropriate type of extracurriculars. You don't have family friends who are themselves embedded in academia or in institutions that can help you get accreditation, or can help you like progress, or make like useful connections, or introduce you to scholars who can like you're basically just going in blind. You may as well just have gotten off the bus and visited on a lark, and you're treated as such. They will fleece you for your cash, then they'll kick you out. That's not a critique of the university as an institution. That's a critique of the university as it is run, by administrators whose primary aim is to fleece as much money out of the student body as possible, and by a society which treats it purely as an obligatory jobs program, or a jobs preparation program, which it is assuredly not in 90% of cases. Let's see. So, after Fierstein was awarded a Rhodes Scholarship during her senior year, questions about whether she had accurately represented her background led to investigations by both the Rhodes Trust and Penn that concluded she had at times suggested or failed to correct the impression left by some statements about her and her own application essays. For anyone who's familiar with my coverage of Not So Erudite, who's the interviewer in this conversation, this will ring a little bit familiar. That she had grown up a poor foster child. As a result, she withdrew from the Rhodes Scholarship. A sympathetic Penn faculty member has paid her Oxford tuition in its stead. That was nice. Penn's Office of Student Conduct recommended withholding her master's degree until she paid a fine. Both conditions were dropped, but a notation about the investigative finding remains in her transcript. I know nothing about her background with her mother, so I'm not going to render a judgment on that. If she performed in the course of getting her master's degree, I think withholding it at this point is wrong. And I really dislike the idea of penalizing a competent student for doing what she had to do to get in. Frankly, if they're literally going to gatekeep good academics or good scholars or good scientists or whatever from going where they need to go because they can't make an arbitrary fee of multiple thousands of dollars, fuck the universities, honestly. But yeah, let's continue with this.
White privileged student who had allegedly fabricated her entire application, her story, and her I'm not sure what you'd call it in the US, but your sort of personal statement that you write in order to apply, in order to sort of humanize yourself and to, I guess, in a way, sell yourself now. And long story short,
for graduate school or undergrad for her?
This was for graduate school.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
This was for Oxford.
She was admitted to Penn on a full scholarship. So here's the thing, right? It's very difficult on the basis of someone's background to gauge how well they actually performed relative to their abilities. Very difficult. You can have students from rich families who were abused, or who just their families just had a bad attitude towards certain types of academics. You can have students from poor families whose parents were nonetheless themselves academics and gave them like tremendous leeway and freedom to and guidance to like expand their horizons and to become like really interested, well-read students going right in. It's very difficult to gauge. I can't falter, honestly, because the way the university is run financially is indeed, I think, largely a scam. Moreover, not only are they fleecing you when you get in, they're fleecing you when you're in, because grad students are at most institutions, maybe not at Penn State, but at most institutions they are. That is Penn State, right? So I thought they said, yeah. Most institutions will use grad students as effectively administrative slave labor. They will mark an absurd amount of papers. They will have to do an absurd. They'll have a stipend, but it'll be kept behind like a certain number of administrative hours that you work. Maybe that's not the case at Penn. I don't know. Maybe that's That's a more normie scale of university thing. But looks like she withdrew from the Rhodes Scholarship. This is during senior year. Okay. What is this? After stories about her struggle with pen and the Rhodes Trust received national attention from stories in the Chronicle of Higher Education, the New Yorker, and the New Yorker, commentators took the university and American elite higher education in general to task for its use of the story of Fierstein and to some other recent Rhodes recipients as poverty porn and its shifting definition of a first-generation student. Frankly, the fact that she could be in foster care placement at all, I don't care about the context. And for her to be penalized for calling herself a first-generation student, if you're in foster care, it's a fair assumption that at the very least, a sizable chunk of the benefits of not being a first-generation student are not available to you.
University in the UK.
Okay.
And this also then had implications for how she got into UPenn, because she'd written the same sort of, in a way, the same sort of personal statement, basically saying that she had grown up in the system, that she had suffered abuse from her biological mother, and that with all of this, she'd sort of overcome, and now she wanted to get into foster care and into sort of learning about foster care through a master's degree at Oxford. And she got in on a scholarship, a very prestigious scholarship, which is intended for sort of these exceptional cases of exceptional individuals who sort of made it into academia. And
which is sick, by the way, because we have no way to actually filter the real ones from the ones who were just lucky in a lot of ways. Like, what do they think happens before these people apply for these scholarships? Is it like a Coach Carter movie that just happened in the background? They just overcame all the odds. We have no idea, and it's really preposterous.
Because of this, the university started looking into what she'd said, because simultaneously at the same time, she was actually fighting UPenn because they have been trying to sort of clean up their image regarding a building that had caused an accident, and basically like a whole sort of bureaucratic cover-up of things, allegedly. And she was also quite a staunch student activist, very loud, very noisy, very invested in UPenn and just in the university and its students. Sorry about that.
Okay, where's she going to go with this? Is she going to be offended at the unruly student who got in on a scholarship but wasn't technically first generation? Or is she going to be sympathetic and against the university that was trying to squeeze every ounce of cash they could out of someone with every little technicality they could find?
The entire bureaucratic system sort of just went after Mackenzie at UPenn, and it was very bad and very messy and very public. And so the story that I heard was what I think most people heard: this student who had lied about her upbringing because her mother was an incredibly successful doctor, wealthy. They were like sort of upper middle class, and allegedly Mackenzie had lied about the abuse and yeah, everything like that. And so it just didn't really make sense to me. It just seemed a bit too convenient a story, I think. And also just a sort of knowing, I guess, foster care and adoption and everything about that. I know how sort of everybody's story is very different and very complex, and I don't think anybody would have gotten away with lying about being in foster care, lying about abuse, for so many years, for their entire childhood, their young adulthood, and sort of it just seemed very peculiar, a bit too convenient. And so I just read into it. I found interviews, found stories, and just sort of got a sense of what was going on. And it made sense just based on, I guess, my personal experience with the bureaucracy of a elite university, and its interest over that of its students, because now it is primarily about not just
Okay.
money, but image, and very much an image.
She has a good take on this. Good for her. Kids' experience at uni. I think we've seen enough of that. Most meaningful books.
Alexander behind you. Who are your other favorite
Yes.
writers and philosophers? What other
Oh yeah, Solzhenitsyn.
old white men do you love? Or obviously non-white men as well, and non-men. Who are your favorite writers? Like, which books do you kind of look at as like your home?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Um, well, I'd have to say Dostoevsky, definitely. I was obsessed with Dostoevsky as a student. I just read and read Dostoevsky every day, all day, and it was just so comforting. Um, and I think it just opened a world of
Dostoevsky comforting.
just a lot of moral questions that I was having, because I
Different
had
strokes, I guess.
by then just given up on God, given up on any faith, belief in anything, I think, including humanity. But there was still something that got me up every day, that made me want to study for exams and tests and to write papers. And I didn't really know what it was exactly, especially during those really low points. And I think that just helped to establish, I think, the importance of faith just in and of itself, of hope just in and of itself, even when everything else seems just hopeless and there's just nobody there for you. And also just dealing with doubt in any higher power.
Right.
Yeah, I think Dostoevsky, most definitely. I think all of my reading, actually, when I think about it, it's just old white men. So I really,
With Dostoevsky, is there a specific one? Because Crime and Punishment is the most famous. Is that the one you like the most, though, or what do you? Because I personally love Demons. I think Demons is one of my favorites by him.
yes, I do love demons. I do, yes, I do. I haven't read Demons in about a year now, but I'd say The Brothers Karamazov is my favorite. That was my first that I read. So I think that holds a special place in my heart. I think just the exploration of characters with such different moral perspectives, and yet having to cope with just everyday life and with each other.
Okay, so she's definitely read at least the first 30 pages of The Brothers Karamazov. That is definitely not the book in its entirety or its significance, but she's, you know, she's gone through it a little bit. Every other thing she's mentioned so far is just kind of like she'll drop the name or the title, and that's it. And it's like, okay, you're gonna bring this up. What do you bring this up for? Did you get anything out of it? It's
I think that was very important, just seeing that ability to try and navigate relationships, familial relationships, in a way that I personally have never had to. I never had to sort of see that importance of trying to live with individuals who have completely different moral perspectives to you, and trying to make it work.
all right. Dostoevsky wasn't a sitcom, so I don't know. She probably didn't get very far. You'd think, given her interest in Christianity in particular, she would have mentioned like I don't know, the Grand Inquisitor aside or whatever. But anyways, I'll be right back. I need to get some food into my system because my blood sugar is crashing. We'll continue in just a second. sorry about that. Let's continue.
Right.
Or dying. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I'd say that's my favorite. Yeah.
Okay. Any other writers?
Oh
Dostoevsky.
gosh, you put me
All
on
of
the spot now.
Dostoevsky,
I'm gonna have
apparently.
to look at my bookcase. Oh, well, nothing that's terribly popular. I mean, Thomas Hobbes. I absolutely love Thomas Hobbes. Uh, that's sort of my go-to book at night. And I think also been reading a lot
Go-to book at night is Thomas Hobbes.
of Catherine McKinnon lately, just trying to get a bit more in touch with my feminist side, which I do feel has been sort of lacking over the last few years. And I'm just trying to sort of regain a sense of, I think, understanding womanhood in the world. For myself, just I think philosophically is very important to me.
Yeah.
So
Tell me about that.
yes, about womanhood.
Yeah, why I'm asking is
What?
I'm basically in the same place. I'm in a debate sphere, which is very masculine.
Yes.
It
Oh,
calls
yes.
on what I would say masculine traits a lot of the time. I'm imagining my testosterone is always like getting pumped right up when I'm in debate, and I love it. I fucking love it. I'm disagreeable as shit.
Yeah.
But I've always occupied a lot more of these spaces, and I have a very like troubled relationship with my mom, right? Like, hashtag mommy issues. And so I think when it comes to understanding femininity and what that can look like and like the good of it, which is also really undervalued in our society. I think our society really prioritizes masculine traits. We think femininity is
Yes.
very nice and sweet.
Yes.
But we
Oh, yes.
respect masculine traits. And the problem is that we should probably respect feminine traits because there's something respect worthy, for example, in being able to put another person's needs over your own. That is deeply respect worthy.
Okay, word of the wise. If you're trying to bullshit your way into saying to a general audience that you've read feminist theory or whatever, so general rule of thumb, they're not going to be extolling the virtues of being motherly and caring.
It's incredible. Being able to just accept somebody and just make them feel warm is very respect worthy. And so when I'm saying tell me about that, I'm saying what have you found? Because it's a walk in life that I'm struggling with, particularly because it's not my proclivity, I think, by personality nature. And also I have like a bit of a fractured relationship. Most people who rejected me were women, right? I've got stuff with women, but at the same time, I've recognized that it's important to like value these things. And I'm still feminine in a lot of ways.
It's funny because they're both trying to bullshit each other in exactly the same way. Both of them are basically frauds, and they're worried the other will catch them. It's kind of, it's beautiful. They found each other.
Obviously.
Yes.
So yeah, any writers you recommend, so I can intellectualize my femininity at least. Try a top-down process.
Well, I think for me, the writer who's resonated most with me is probably an OG, Simone de Beauvoir.
Oh no. Oh, this is, oh no. Oh no. This is gonna be bad.
I've just found that when I perceive my womanhood from a philosophical lens, I then see it as a very personal, individual thing, but also something that is aspirational, something that I sort of have to craft my way through. And I can't really project it onto other people. I can't say that this is how it is, this is the book. But it does give me sort of a perspective for myself and sort of a framework that can help me to understand, okay, what for you is it that makes you feel free? What is it that makes you feel valuable or of value? What is it that gives you value? And I think this idea of becoming, and also this very sort of existentialist idea of sort of there not being an essence to something, sort of those very basic tenets are things.
So she has to just be. I'm going to give her this much credit. So what she's demonstrating is something that puts her at like a level above Wicked Supreme. Wicked Supreme has zero interest in ideas. So he doesn't encounter ideas. He has no familiarity with people who have ideas. He has no familiarity with what people who have ideas or who are interested in ideas talk about or mention in passing or refer to. He has not like looked down reading lists. He has not looked into forums that talk about these things. He just doesn't give a shit. He thinks Iago refers to a parrot when we're talking about theater. She knows who Simone de Beauvoir is, even if I don't buy for a second that she's read a page of her. She knows who Dostoevsky is, even if I don't buy for a second that she's read more than a few dozen pages of him. And she's familiar enough, not enough to actually bullshit her way through, but enough to make an attempt. She's not dumb. What she is lazy. Very lazy.
That I think because they're just so basic and so everyday and just
Is it terminal? Yes, it's terminal because she's being paid money now. So at this point, the behavior is reinforced by a power that none of us can overturn.
so often quoted and referenced. I think we often just take them for granted or just ignore them or just think, oh, you know, who cares? But I think just getting back in touch with that has been very important for me personally, because like you, I think most
Is essence discussed in, yes, in de Beauvoir it absolutely is. Things not having an essence, that is, I mean, I guess sort of. It's too imprecise though. Like you when you've actually gone through these things, because they're hard, right? You remember like, okay, there's a specific thing here that she does. She argues this, or she has this approach to this, or she challenges this assumption of da 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 da, right? So like somebody who I have like some level of familiar with, James C. Scott and his idea of the of state administration as being engaged fundamentally in a process, some level of legibility making, right? That's probably my rephrasing of it, but like something like that. Like you have something specific that you draw from them, not just, oh, this gave me feelings of, you know, just being critical and introspective and getting in touch with my womanly side or something like that. It's reductive and hand wavy to the point of being not even amounting to a parody of the thing that she's referencing. It's like it's just trying to bullshit her way through the conversation fundamentally. But again, she is aware enough to bullshit appropriately.
of my very negative experiences have been with women, and most of my rejection has been from women. Sort of the only person that I ever loved growing up.
What do you mean by essence? Well, I mean in the sense of I suppose the meaning and significance of a thing being determined by, I guess, the investment by an agent in some kind of project or whatever. That's probably more of a bastardization of Sartre than de Beauvoir, but that's kind of where I'm getting this from. I haven't read de Beauvoir either. I've read the introduction to de Beauvoir. She's interesting and kind of a nasty piece of work in her own right, but it's like she knows what she was touching on, or at least very least who she was touching on.
She died, and we believed that God was going to save her, and so we did nothing about her illness, and then that failed. So I think I have a very complicated relationship to woman as an entity and being. And I think in that I also forget that I am a woman, and I have to also come to terms with that, I think, and come to terms with that not in sort of a resigned way, but in a way that I can actually, I think, as you said, sort of find value and also a place of respect for myself and for women. So yes, yeah. But it's going to be a long journey.
All right. I think we have enough of. We get the idea. So she made this apparently. Here, let me full screen this better. So this is from the video we're going to be going over tomorrow. I am as stumped as the rest of you. So this is her political spectrum. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what any of this is doing. But here we go. So, democratic, neoliberalism, universal citizenship, globalism, deregulation, privatization. So just a right-wing shill's parody of what... Well, I mean, it's all being reduced to American political parties, which is a little bit strange. But okay. Liberalism is free marketism, apparently. It's not what liberalism is. Yeah. Anyways, that's a thing. That makes no sense to me, at least. Maybe somebody else can shed light on that. But we'll be addressing all of that tomorrow, I suppose. So, I'll catch you there. Once again, though, for people who are watching this stream will not be available on this channel. It will be unlisted and then privated as soon as I log off. If you want to watch this whole stream from the beginning, go to the link at the bottom of my channel front page. There is a second channel called President Sunday Archives, where all of my unedited VODs are going to be stored henceforth. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.